Before you balance college and pursue your business and build your dreams, do this one thing. For the past 8 years, I've been learning and trying all the different ways to do exactly that. Pursue my dreams and stay in college. And I figured out that it all comes down to 3 principles. Today, I promise that after this video, you will be able to stay in college and actually strive in college at the same time pursue your dreams. So the way that I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna give you the stories, I'm gonna give you the biggest of lessons, then I'm gonna give you the secret of mine. So the first thing first is when it all begins, and it all will make sense in a second. So when I was young, I was in elementary school, secondary school, etc. And I remember that I always had this entrepreneurial mindset of mine. So I was going to school, when I come back, I figure out all of the stuff that I can sell, okay? So I was actually talking to this one friend just a few hours ago, and we were talking how he actually resold the spinners, the fidget spinners at the time when it was very popular. And that got us to the conversation about business and about our entrepreneurial journeys when we were young. And I was telling him about these journeys of mine when I was selling water to people that are thirsty. Duh. So there's this event that happened in the Arabian country for Muslims, which is every year they buy a sheep and they slaughter it, etc. So in order for you to buy a sheep, you go to the market, and that market is pretty much very big and it's time consuming. And therefore, people are thirsty, especially it's literally midsummer, and look, the temperature is insane. It can even get to 40 Celsius degrees. So it's like, oh, this is an insane idea, so I'm gonna do that. And I sell that for like 1 penny and whatever actually they gave me. Then I grew even more, right? I was selling water, so freezed water to people that sell ice juice, okay? So if someone wants to sell juices and cold juices, etc., they need ice. So I was the supplier of ice, and they give me 2.5 pennies for the bottle of ice, okay? So 4 bottles give me $1, etc., etc. But the thing is that it was actually time consuming, it was difficult, blah, 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 but duh, all right? And I think these are just the most elementary of them, and they will have an effect of the lessons, and that's why I'm starting with them. The second story is actually when I started selling fireworks. So in my neighborhood, we had this event, which is every year we celebrate, okay? So it's like Christmas, but it's different. So there's every year we celebrate and we do fireworks all over the place. Everybody does that. The thing that I noticed is that in the areas that are closest to our neighborhood, it's actually the prices are higher than if I go to the local market, the main market of the city. Then I can get it with way cheaper, okay? So it's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go all in on this one. I'm gonna go buy from the cheaper place. I'm gonna sell it in my neighborhood. I sell it to my friends, and that's really what I did. At first, I bought one box, then I bought 2, then I bought 3, etc., etc. And I was doing all of this all over the time. So whenever there is a trend that is coming in my area, I just be like, oh, well, this is a great business idea. Why not? I'm not gonna do it. And that was me, basically. For my entire childhood, that was what I was doing. So this makes you question, and I know because you've watched these videos, literally you are in the same situation, which is how can I balance college in real life business? We're not talking about this bullshit. We're not talking about this crap selling water, brother. 2 pennies? That's what the fuck? That will not give me anything. Look, if there is one secret that will make you able to stay in college and do business, it's this one thing. Before you start your business while being in college, do this one thing. Okay? What is it? You have to understand the 20-80% rule. It's actually, this rule is mentioned greatly in the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, and actually he speaks about it more in depth, and he says, this is something that applies to everything in life. In fact, the 20-80% rule is just a standard. In most cases, it is 90% to 10%. It's 95% to 5%. So the explanation of this, he speaks and he says 20% of our results, 20% of our inputs, our activities, whatever it may be. So let's say now in college, 20% of what you do, 20% gives you 80% of the results. Now what you have to figure out is which one is those 20%. Is it, let's say, is it attending lecture? Is it revising? Is it taking notes? Is it being friends with smart people, etc., etc.? And this is like very real. And I actually was thinking about this and I was like, this actually makes so much sense. So if I realize what is the 20% of my college and also the 20% of my business, then it will not only do 100% of my energy, but I can only use 40% of my energy and get 160% of the results. Which, if I choose one of them, I can only get 100%. So I get more by doing less. And if this doesn't make any sense to you and you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense, I'm going to give you one story. So I studied 15 years in the educational system to realize this one lesson. In the final year in high school, I realized that, well, I can do more than one thing and maintain my scores. And the way that I did it was actually to do what I love, which was e-commerce, making videos online, training, and also studying, without sacrificing any of my social life, anything like that. So it was very strong health, right? Health-wise, I was insane. Mental-wise, I was great, right? Because I was doing running, I was doing all of these workouts. I was mentally great. Also, socially, pretty valid, okay? I was very popular, I was very social, I was having all of the interaction greatly. I was great in college. In fact, that was the best year probably in the entire of my career. I got the first in multiple classes in the hardest national exam of the educational system of 12 years. And you might say, well, there is probably something. You were taking additional classes? No. People were dumb? No. Or actually everyone was taking additional classes. The time that they were putting in additional classes for 3 years, I was putting in videos on e-commerce, building myself, building the stuff that I believe in. So how can it come? How is it possible for me to be the first in the national exam? And this is what got me thinking until I actually done this research and I analyzed 30 months of my life tracking 18 habits, and one of them was actually studying in addition to anything that I thought it would actually affect my performance. I realized that all aspects of my life are actually interconnected. I'm going to give you an example. So let's say my social media consumption is related one way or another with all of the other aspects of my life. I was like, dude, there is no way. Well, it's actually correct. And now it's not only a theory, but it's proven by data. So I looked at the data, I analyzed it, and then I made the decisions to realize, well, there is habits that I have to cut off, and there is habits that I have to keep going. As an example, reading books. I realized that in the best version of myself, or the closest version of myself in the past 30 months, I was reading books. So it's a no-brainer for me to start reading books because I want to get closer to the best version of myself. I want to be the best version of myself. So I might as well look at the data, find what actually helps me do that, and do it. On the other hand, there is stuff that I found that whenever I do, I get further away from being the best version of myself. And the example was social media consumption. If my social media consumption is all-time high, it's more likely that I am further away from being the best version of myself. And I realized that also not consuming social media at all might not be healthy and does not necessarily get me closer to the best version of myself. So I realized that it's this sweet spot that I have to choose who am I consuming, and the way that I do it is simply asking myself, if this video that I'm watching right now, will it give me results immediately so I can literally do it right now? One, if yes, sure, I can continue. No, I just don't. Then I'm asking myself literally, if this video was a lecture in real life and I have stuff waiting for me, okay, whether that be in college, whether that be in school, whether that be in work, whatever it is important, and I'm like, will I watch it or not? So this already eliminates away the fear of missing out, the FOMO. Also makes it just so realistic, because in a lot of times our reality kind of like, it's a video, dude. No. And people say that you're the sum of the closest 5 people. I say you're also the sum of the closest content creators that you consume all the time. So you might as well control that in addition to your network. Now you comprehend all of the essence. You understand these steps, but still you didn't find a secret. I think the most important thing in all of this, to stay in college and pursue your business and your dreams, comes down to only being able to take risks. So this is mentioned greatly in the book, in 2 books, The Richest Man in Babylon and also Think and Grow Rich. The Richest Man in Babylon, it talks about this transition from slavery to being a free man, with this story of this man that he was a slave, and actually the wife of the master had 4 wives. One of them said, look, I'm going to set you up free. Take the camels and run away. He said, what? There is no way. Look, haven't you heard all of the stories about the slaves that ran away? How they got them, tortured them, all of the stuff, horrible stuff. And she said, you have the will of a free man. A free man is brave. So think as a free man. And in the story goes that he did, and he actually got one of the most richest people in Babylon, or in the place. It's like Babylon is the richest city, and he was the richest of them. And also, if you don't like these stories, there's also is mentioned in Think and Grow Rich, which is one of the greatest books of all time, okay? About finance, about self-help books, etc. And it is by Napoleon Hill, who spent 22 years of his life just studying the richest people in the world, including Henry Ford, Carnegie, Edison, all of the people. Right? And literally they say that he was hired by Carnegie, who was the richest man at that point. So like, okay, this makes all the sense. What did he say about that? He took an entire chapter talking about fear. And he said there's 3 main elements that can hold you down from success: fear, indecision, and doubt. Doubt is the easiest to deal with, because you should never doubt yourself. If you doubt, it goes to the unconscious mind. It literally represents itself in the reality. So you should never doubt yourself. Indecision. He said indecision is the most or biggest killer. And the hardest thing about it is always intertwined between fear. So whenever you have this indecision situation happening to you, say to yourself, what is it that I am afraid of? And he speaks about the greatest of fear, as an example, the fear of poverty, which literally the symptoms of it is not wearing good clothes, not relying upon yourself, not taking accountability, etc., etc., and also not making your own decisions and always seeking permissions. And it goes down the fear of death, the fear of criticism, the fear of losing a loved one, etc. And it all has different symptoms, but the most important of them, just to take it, just be brave. And there is someone that actually stated it best, and it's actually Kanye West. When he was on Joe Rogan podcast, he said this. He said, look, have you heard that theory? Joe Rogan was like, what? I was like, what? And he said, when you drop your phone, let's say you drop your phone like this, and I'm right now in the ground. You're probably like, everyone can do it. You're like, oh yeah, I can do it any time of the week. It doesn't matter. Cool. So we get that, and now you are, let's say, above the Empire Building, right? Or on the rooftop, whatever it is. And you're doing the same thing. Now you're scared. You can't do it. Because your brain literally is thinking about all of the bad stuff. It's the same action, different circumstances. And that's how Kanye West stated it best. And dude, I was really impressed. He said, look, it's just the same thing in real life. It's the same thing in our careers. You just have to build that habit of making the decisions, taking the actions despite of your fear. So eliminating your fear from your mind. And actually this is also portrayed in so many successful people. One of them is Elon Musk. Once portrayed in the book and you start reading, you don't have to read between the lines to understand that Elon Musk literally faced this, right? Faced this, which is bravery, at a very young age. Because when he was in South Africa, he was always getting beaten up, that to the point that he had to fight back for him to survive. It was so brutal that he actually always was known for whenever he fight, he hits for the nose. Even if he gets beaten up, those bullies will not get back to him. Because they know even that they beat him up, he is so much of a trouble. So hit for the nose and hit fast and hit first and hit big. This is an Elon Musk quote from the book Elon Musk. And as you go throughout the story, you get all of his people, his wives, etc., that are talking about it. They say what happened to him in his childhood still has an effect until this day. He has that unfearful nature of his. And the same thing goes with his relationship with his father, how he acts emotionless. And they say that probably that was one of the reasons why he is so successful, is that he can detach himself completely from his emotions, because it's a habit that he built when he was dealing with his hard father. This is mentioned in the book, by the way. It's not just me telling you some bullshit BS. It's literally mentioned in the book of the richest man in the world, and not only that, he's probably the smartest, the most impactful. Not only that, is that those lessons are not coming from him now that he has $200 billion. It's literally coming from him when he had nothing. Or at least he had so little that you can get some information or actually use the advice and knowledge that he is using practically, immediately as well. So now you comprehend how the elements that are very important, that doesn't seem so much relating about balancing college and going through business, pursuing your dreams. It seems so vague, but it's actually what it is. However, I'm gonna add another thing. So when I was in my first year in college, okay, I found it very hard, very stressful, very difficult, and everyone around me was always moaning about how difficult it is. I was like, okay. I saw this content creator in the same college, and he was higher than me. He was like 1 year or 2 years ahead of me, and he was always producing content. I went to him because he followed me, and he was getting, he was really doing good in content creation. And I asked him, I said, hey, so we were chatting back and forth, etc. I said, how do you do it? He said, to do what? I said, you are in the same college. At the same time, how do you create all of this content? How do you find time? What's the secret? I'm looking literally at everyone else. They're always crying and they're not doing anything else except college. How do you do that, dude? And he answered by 2 words. He said, time management. I said, this is bullshit. Honestly, I said, this is bullshit. But look, it didn't actually make sense until I read the 4-hour work week, and how he speaks in the book, which is, by the way, it's known as the greatest book for entrepreneurship. Right? And a lot of this stuff that I speak about is also mentioned in the book. And he speaks about how most people are actually just trapping themselves in a box, and that's why he called the book The 4-Hour Work Week, is that you can get the same results, even more, with just working 4 hours a week. So when I first read it, I was like, dude, what are you talking about? And look, I still didn't finish the book, but I now know that he's going through a process to get there. He's making the 40 hours to few hours, so it's 10 hours, whatever. He's still cutting it down as I read the book. And I realized that, well, there's always a way, which is also like another quote from iShowSpeed, who's the best streamer right now in the world. Don't take his advice, but probably you should, right? Because it's probably similar to a lot of people that are in college in terms of age. And he says, look, whenever someone tells me there is no way, I tell them there is a way. And he repeats that. And it's not some clip that is new, that when he has millions of dollars. No. It is actually when he first started. So you're like, okay, so I have to look for a way, I have to be brave, and also I have to manage my time. How can I manage my time? It's literally just do the first rule, 20-80% rule. I look at the data, I look at everything that I'm doing, and I see, and I ask myself, which is the 20% that is giving me the 80% of my results in college. Then I do the same thing in my business. So like this, I do 20% here and 20% here. Also, I have 60% of my time left that I can do whatever I want, and I can still maintain the both things. Dude, that's literally it. And I promised, just as I promised, what you've seen here, you can never unseen it. It's just that simple. Okay, and I don't gatekeep. I give you everything, and all the knowledge here is based on data. So go, look, as I promised, now you can balance your college and also build your dreams. So much as well as subscribe.